Welcome back to Man vs. Meeple, the show where we talk about everything board game related. I am here today to talk to you guys about Star Wars Destiny. I'm excited. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, David.
No kidding. Both of us are Star Wars fans. You know, this is... When I first saw this game, I think back at Gen Con, saw it played, I wasn't too sure about it.
I wasn't interested at all, I'll be quite honest.
I saw these dice and I thought it looked, at the time, a little...
Childish
in a way.
Right.
But then... We got a couple copies here, and it is a lot of fun.
You know, I've seen this, as you said, I've seen this game played several times, and we even went down to GTS event, and it was being played down there. Yep. And I looked at it and I was like, I didn't even sit down to play it.
I know.
But I requested a copy of it because I really wanted to try it out. And it is a CCG, so it's one of those games like Magic the Gathering that you're going to have to invest money in and buy blister packs in order to get new characters and new weapons and new locations and all those kind of things.
But we both already find ourselves wanting to do that after playing it a couple times.
You know, this is a really, really solid game. So let's talk briefly about what you get. Yeah. You can buy starters or you can buy the booster packs. The starters are going to come with 24 cards and 8 dice. You either buy a villain pack or you buy a hero pack. So when you buy the villain pack, you get Kylo Ren and a stormtrooper, and when you buy the hero pack, you get Finn and Rey.
And you're playing heroes against villains,
yeah. So it, like typical deck building fashion, you're going to be using, you're going to be building a deck of cards, and you're going to be using either villain cards or hero cards, and there are some gray cards that are neutral, and those are all denoted in the bottom left-hand corner. They tell you exactly right there what kind of card it is.
And the dice that you mentioned that you get, we do need to point out, these are really nice dice. In fact, when I first, back again to my Gen Con story, when I first saw these, I assumed that they were stickers on a die.
Right.
But these are printed on there. I mean, they really feel like they're just, like
they're nice and chunky,
and they're good, chunky dice. These are not cheap dice, so it's very nice.
So the cards in the game, you have characters, and those are the the cards that you'll be using in front of you. Those are what you're trying to keep alive and to do damage to other players. You're going to have a deck of cards. In those deck of cards, you're going to have events, which are basically one-time uses, and they go to the discard pile. And you have support. You either have support cards that will stay off to the side of your deck, which will always be able to be used in kind of an action type of aspect.
Right.
And then you have support cards, which are like weapons that will actually be slotted onto characters.
Yeah, the upgrades are really, really where these characters build up and become powerful.
And each of these upgrades, you can have 3 upgrades per character. So most of these cards, anytime you see this section on the left-hand side, that means that card comes with a die as well. So dies come in 2 different ways. When a character gets upgraded, that die will go on to the characters. Whenever they're used, that die will be rolled with the character dice already. Support cards work a little bit different. The die is placed on the support card, and when it's used, it'll be rolled separately.
Yeah, and those have a number of different effects that can help you sort of mitigate the dice in many ways.
Right. So the pre-constructed decks here have 20 cards in them. Standard tournament legals, 30 cards. Each of the players will also come with a location. This is kind of a cool way of setting up the game, too. When you start the game, each player is going to roll the dice that they have available to them, and they're going to look at the numbers on the die. Whoever wins can choose which of the 2 locations to use for the entire game. So one player's location is not going to be used at all.
Right.
The other player whose location wasn't picked, if your location wasn't picked, you get 2 shields.
Right.
And shields are kind of like damage negators in the game. So you're going to place your 2 characters in front of you, you're going to shuffle up your cards, and then you're going to each draw 5 cards.
Right, and when you start play, I mean, the structure of the turn is very simple, but you do have a fairly decent list of things to choose from to do on your turn.
Yeah, surprisingly enough, there's 6 different actions that you can take on your turn.
Yeah, and almost everything you do in the game is one of those actions. So simply playing a card is an action.
Right.
You play a card, usually have to pay some resources for it. Some are free, but oftentimes the resources that you collect are going to have to be paid to play a card.
So, yeah, there's 3 sets of tokens in the game. There's resources, which are the yellows. There's the Boba Fett helmet, which is the shields. And then there are just damage tokens. And each of the characters has a set amount of damage that they can take.
Right.
So the actions in the game, on your turn, you're simply taking one action.
Right.
Playing a card is one of them. You pay resources in order to bring a card in, an event, support, what it may be. You can exhaust a character. This is activating the character in typical Magic fashion. You tap the character sideways, you take the die, and you roll it into your die pool.
Right.
And it stays there. It's not used right away. It would be used on a future turn. Everything you do in the game is one action. That's all you get on your turn.
Right, so it moves along really fast.
Yeah.
And the other things you can exhaust, too, are the support, which are kind of like characters, but they don't generally come with dice. So you'll tap a support character, and it will have just an immediate effect of some kind that you can utilize, just using it at the right time.
Another action you can take is resolving the die. Any of the dice that are in your dice pool, you can take and look at that symbol and use its ability. Now, there's several different symbols. There are melee attack symbols, which are two lightsabers that are crossed. That does just direct damage to someone.
Right.
There's range damage. There's the ability to discard cards from a player's hand, discard resources from a player.
Gather
resources, create shields. And there's even an icon on there, which is the special icon, which you see on the bottom of Kylo Ren there, that activates special abilities on specific cards. When you activate a die, you just goes back, you use its ability, and it goes back on that character.
Yeah, and the cool thing about activating dice is there's a risk-reward with how many dice you roll out into your pool before you activate them. Because when you activate the die on a character, or on any of their die, you're taking all of the die of a certain symbol.
Right.
So you might roll up to, later in the game, 5, 6 die out there that you haven't used, and if you've got a lot of the same symbol, you can have one massive attack or a massive haul of resources.
Right.
But you're always risking having those dice out there because there's plenty of stuff that make you take those dice back.
The most important thing about this game is it is a dice game. So most people look at this and say, it's all luck.
Yeah.
There's good dice mitigation in here, and the way this is handled is that on your turn, you can discard any of the 5 cards that you have in your hand to look at all the dice in your dice pool and reroll any amount of them.
Right.
And that's your dice mitigation in the game, which is really, really clever. There is a risk reward of that, too, because one of the game in conditions is when you're out of cards both in your deck and in your hand. So you're sacrificing some of your longevity in the game.
And that's not the only mitigation either. There are some characters that have symbols on them that allow you to re-roll or even allow you to focus, they say, and you're able to pick up a die and change it to any side you want. There's also plenty of cards that do some of that same sort of thing.
Right. You can also pass on your turn. If you pass, you are allowed to come back in. The round only ends when both players pass. And the last action you can take is claiming the battlefield. Whoever, we talked about this briefly, whoever this is in front of, that stays in front of them until it's claimed on the next round. When that's claimed, the player will take the action of that battlefield and put it in front of them. They're out for the round. They can't do any more actions, but starting on the next round, they get to be the first player, which is huge.
Yeah, it's effectively a first player marker that gets taken by anyone in the game at any time, and then they get to be the first player and use that action. So
like any of these style of games, it all comes down to the cards, and this is what really makes the game clever. All these cards have special abilities, have special uses. The dice are just the resources, basically, to empower those cards. I really like this game. Oh, no. And I did not suspect to like this game at all. This scares me a little bit. And this is the checklist, right? Because I know that I'm going to have to buy those large booster pack things. The booster packs are cool, though. I don't know if you've ever played, what's the game by WizKids?
Dice Masters?
Dice Masters, yes. The blister packs on theirs are horrible. The cards come mangled and, and the dice are really small. The blister packs on this, they come in these cardboard holders. So the cards aren't ruined when you get them, and the dice is really well held in there. Right. So for people like me who like collecting this kind of stuff, the stuff usually comes in very mint condition, which is fantastic. Yeah, it's really good. And speaking of collectability, obviously it's Star Wars, so that in and of itself is a real big draw for a lot of people. Right. But I found myself saying as soon as we played this a few times that I was starting to think about other properties too because I like the game itself so much. So it's not just a Star Wars fans game. Right. I think someone who could play this game who likes Star Wars, maybe doesn't care so much about Star Wars. I don't know who that is out there. Yeah. And they'll enjoy this game because it's a really solid game underneath. The one thing I will say is that Dave and I are very different with the kind of games we like. I like Take That. I love competitive card games. I like Netrunner and those style of games. You've made the comment less so, right? That this is a very conflictive type game. You are beating each other down, and it's whoever kills the other player or depletes their deck in their hand first wins. Yeah, you have to embrace that. I mean, it's a 2-player game. Any game like this, you've got to understand you're competing with someone, so you're going to be doing things to
hurt them. They're going to be doing things to hurt you. It's just part of the game.
Yeah.
With that said, there are plenty of people I play games with who wouldn't enjoy that.
Sure.
I don't mind it when I'm into it and I'm playing with someone like Jeremy, but when I'm playing with someone who isn't into it, I don't even like doing the mean things to them.
But don't you want to know what Darth Vader does and Luke Skywalker? I mean, I totally want to know what the Luke Skywalker's lightsaber does.
There are some nasty moves, I'm sure. I shudder to think what a lot of the dark side cards do, because some of them, I could take a turn and get like 3 shields on my guys, and then 1 card, remove all your shields.
I like that.
That's
I
rough.
like that part. So.
But once you play it a few times, you get used to it and you get into it. So you got to just learn a few times from some plays.
So you guys make the decision if this is the right game for you. I can tell you, I'm not a CCG guy, but I like this one. So I'm going to be buying some booster packs, David. We're going to be playing this together.
I'll be playing his booster packs.
Yeah. So that, guys, is Star Wars Destiny. We're Man vs. Meeple. Make sure you guys subscribe to us. Make comments in this video below. Follow us on Facebook and like us on Twitter. And check out very soon our Kickstarter. It's going live next week.
Absolutely. Very, very soon.
See you guys. Season 1 of Man vs. Meeple is sponsored by TMG Games, publisher of great games like Yokohama, Guilds of London, and the soon-to-be-released Colosseum.